الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. ففروا إلى الله.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So last time we talked about sincerity and the importance of sincerity and how we should make sure that the overwhelming majority of our intention is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we're going to continue the theme of racing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by talking about the opposite of sincerity. And the opposite of sincerity is to have shahwa, or to follow the shahawat, to follow the desires and the whims that one has. And whenever you're sincere, you are by definition not following these whims, and whenever you're following these whims, by definition you're not being sincere. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes to us what the shaitan, what the devil says after not bowing to Adam alayhi salam,
قال رب بما أغويتني لأزينن لهم في الأرض ولأغوينهم أجمعين إلا عبادك منهم المخلصين.
He says that he will be able to deviate and take advantage of those that are not mukhlasin, that those that are not truly 100% sincere for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will see this. So I remind myself and all the brothers and sisters watching that we need to make sure that the overwhelming majority of our intention is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more of that intention is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more reward we get and the more repellent to the shaitan we become. So these desires, there are three whims that generate the majority of what we would classify as being a whimful person or following the nafs. These three are the whim or the desire for control, the whim or the desire for approval, and the whim and the desire for security. These desires, these whims, generate our emotions, and these emotions generate our thoughts. So these three generative whims create tens of emotions every single day. The maximum I've seen with people is that they have maybe 25, 30 emotions, and that's if they live a very colourful life. And these emotions then generate the thousands of thoughts that the scientists claim that we have a day. They say 25, 30,000 thoughts. So the biggest bang for your buck is to be able to to get rid of your desires as opposed to get rid of your thought. So change your desires or release them is better than changing a thought, because you got 20,000 to go through every single day. And the second best is to change the way that you feel, but the best thing to do is to change these generative desires that we're talking about. Again, if you are sincere, then these don't come into play, because you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second you start thinking about this, you're no longer sincere. So if we go back to the example that I gave in the first video, where I'm going to go study for 5 years, and to start with, my intention is to do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then, after a week, I want to go to the lecture. Why? Because I want to impress my lecturer. Or I want to go to the lecture. Why? Because there's a sister that I'm interested in marrying. So now I'm going to the lecture for that sake and not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or I'm going to the lecture for the sake of passing so that I can get my degree for the sake of Allah. But going to the lecture itself isn't for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is it for? It's for one of these whims. Either I want control. I think that by going to the lecture it's going to increase the likelihood I'm going to get control, I'm going to understand the subject matter better. That might be true. Or I'm going to go for approval. My lecturer is going to like me. I might, get to know the sister better, and she might get to know me better through halal means, inshallah, and therefore we're going to get, it will increase the likelihood of us getting married. So I'm looking for approval there, or maybe my friends are going to the lecture, etc. Or for security. If I don't go to the lecture, if I don't go to my classes, then I will feel fearful and I'll start to worry that I won't pass my exams. So can you see how the exact opposite of being sincere is that you will follow these desires or these whims? So you have to really be aware of this. The shortest cut, the quickest way to overcome your whims is to be sincere for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to make a note here that some of us will do something for the sake of Allah so that we can feel good about ourselves, and this isn't full sincerity. This is, there's some hadh al-nafs in this, where we want to do something to please ourselves. So we want to feel good about ourselves. This isn't sincerity. It's more sincere than doing something straight up for something, without doing it for Allah. Because remember the two conditions, the first intention is for Allah, and the second is that the majority of it is for Allah. So we would say that the majority and the first would come for Allah, but then there are other things where I want to please myself through pleasing Allah. So it's not 100% sincere. Sincerity means that you're doing it for Allah, just for the sake of Allah. Not so that it will give you power, not so that you can gain control, not so that you can feel good about yourself, not so that you can gain security. You're doing it just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah, وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best one that can act on your behalf. So you don't have to worry about anything else. But whenever you realize, or you kind of, during your day you find, oh, you know what, I actually wasn't sincere, then what were you doing? What was it that you're doing? Ask yourself, why am I going to the lecture? Why am I going to this meeting? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And then ask yourself, is this wanting control? Is it wanting approval? Or is it wanting security? It could be one, it could be two, it could be all three of these desires. And remember that Allahu Akbar, that Allah is greater than these desires. Remember this. And as you remember that, you then make a decision. I don't need to whim for approval or control or security. I realign my intention 100% strictly for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the shortest way to get over your whims and to become whimless and to detach from dunya and to detach from your whims is to be sincere. But whenever you stray from that, ask yourself, well, what was I trying to do here? Was I trying to get control, approval, security? Make a decision after remembering that Allah is greater than all of these things, and then realign your intention for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the strategy that we use in order to remain focused on the target, which is pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Ramadan Mubarak. Remember myself, the Ummah and the brothers and sisters that have made these videos possible. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.